Hi. So far, we've done quite a bit in n8n, but we haven't really created any meaningful connections, like connections to Google or Slack or Airtable and all of these other tools that you might be using. And today I want to take you through connections, not teaching you all of the connections, but deal with the one that I personally find the most complicated and difficult. I think speaking to many people out there, a lot of people find this part difficult as well, which is connecting Google Sheets. So let me show you how to make a connection with Google Sheets and actually build workflows, taking Google Sheet data and incorporating it into your workflow. And the project we're going to be using is this one. I'll take you over to the classroom. So far, here's what we've created. We've got something that we can throw in our user feedback, and this is a single user feedback. And then it goes into our workflow, which outputs some nicely formatted data with insight and sentiment pairs. Don't worry too much about this data. It does feel like we're just stuffing it into a drawer at the moment, but we are going to be doing something with it next in the next video. The focus today is on this singular feedback. Usually we'd have multiple rows of feedback, say in a spreadsheet or CSV file or something like that. And what we want to do is to feed all of those into our workflow. So let's assume that this is Google Sheets. Let's create that connection and let's feed in those rows into a workflow, have those rows available to use in our workflow. So here we are back in n8n, and let's create a new workflow. Just create a simple trigger. Let's create just a manual trigger manually. There we go. And let's try and connect to Google Sheets. I know we haven't set up the connection yet, but we're just going to try and connect and see what happens. The context is that we've got, hang on, let me get the Google Sheets over, this user feedback. And what we want is to basically extract this information, tell us about your experience, and we're just going to collect it. In later video, I'm going to store this into a vector storage database, but don't worry too much about that now. For now, I just want to make a connection to this Google spreadsheet, and I want to iterate through each of the rows and extract the tell us about your experience. So let's go back into n8n. For that, we need to use get rows, and first thing we need to do here is to create a credential. And so when we open this up, it looks super intimidating, but don't worry, we're going to go through it step by step. We're just going to go with OAuth. That's the recommended one. It gives us a redirect URL. Now, an OAuth is where you actually sign in to Google and then you authenticate with Google. It's called open authentication, and then that creates a connection between your n8n instance and Google. So then it knows, it's like a secret handshake. It knows that this n8n instance is safe. So the things that we need to get is the client ID and the secret ID. And we need to bear in mind this because this is the redirect URL. So when we log into Google, Google is going to redirect us back to this URL, which is going to allow us to log in to n8n. So let's go ahead and set up our client ID and secret so we can fill those up and create the connection with Google. We need to go to console.cloud.google.com, and then once you log in, you'll see up here there's projects. And what I'll do, because you probably have no projects when you start off, what I'll do is I'll create a new project. For this project, I'll call n8n test with vector, organization, location, keep those the same. So now we've got a project created. It's here and it's loading. There we go. And now if we select that project, we want to go over to the left and we want to enable API and services. So let's select that. And the API and services we want to enable is obviously Google Sheets. So what we've done is we've created a project, we've added an API to that project, and we've enabled that API as access. So next, what we want to do is go back over to the left here, and on the API and services, we want to do a OAuth consent screen. So this is this OAuth that the n8n is asking for. So let's go ahead and create that, get started, and we're just going to fill in these names. So we want to create an application, create this name, call it n8n, and this one I can use underscores web underscore sheets, and I'll put my name as a support. And on here we want to make sure that we're doing external, and on there put contact information, on there agree and continue and create. So we've created a project, we've added an API, and we've created a project configuration for the OAuth. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. So finally, what we need to do is create some credentials. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're in here and let's create a credential. The credential we want to create is an OAuth client ID. We're wanting to create an OAuth client key. We want to create a web application. Give the web application a name, n8n connect web, and now we need to add authorized redirect URLs. So this is where we come up to n8n. We've got this callback. Click to copy that. This is the callback that we are going to use, and we've got all this information here. What I'm going to do, Etherpad, I want to add these details in there. So client ID, so just put them safe somewhere. That's my client ID, and I want client secret. So that's a client ID and client secret we've copied over. So let's hit OK, and that's done. So now if we head on over to here, we've got our client ID, we've got the client secret, and hit save. Once we do that, sign into Google. I just logged into my Google account, and then there, I'm logged in, and it's got the green account connected, which is great. So for the Google Sheet, we want to connect to a sheet within document. So we want to connect to the sample sheet here, which has got a small sample of the user feedback. Sheet within document, and I want to get rows. Great. And by default, it says list, but it never really works for me anyway. So just go by ID. And the ID is, if you look at the URL, it is everything after the d/d and everything up to edit. So it's everything from d to before slash. So let's copy that and then paste that in there. So now once you do that, on the view from list, you should see the two sheets available. So let's select sample, and we can do, there's other filters and stuff that we can do, but let's just keep things simple and let's execute this step. So that's going to go into a Google Sheets and extract our results, which it has, and there's quite a few there, which is good. So I'll go back out. All right, so what we'll have then once we've done that is we'll have a green tick here, meaning that we've got Google Spreadsheet node, which fetches all of our rows from our spreadsheet, and now it's available to pass on as an input to any next nodes that we want to create, any new workflows that we want to create. Let's go back into this again, and let me just take you through filters. Because what if we didn't want all of the data, but we just wanted everything to do with Smoking Bones Land Paris? So if we copy that, we can add filters here, and this filter is based on branch, and we can do expressions, but let's just keep it simple for now. And under fixed value, let's put in Smoking Bones Land Paris and then execute that node. So now we've only got the Smoking Bones Land Paris items. And we can add any filters that we want. We can create combinations with and or. So that's super powerful. So we don't need to be putting through all of our data. Now, like we said, we're only interested in grabbing the tell us about your experience. So how do we deal with that? Well, problem that we're going to have with anything that's a list. Here we've got a whole list of stuff and we want things to go in row by row into any workflow that we have. And here I want to introduce you to a special kind of operator called split out. And what that does is it just splits out the fields into rows. So instead of having a for loop, which you might need to loop through row by row by row by row, instead, this just kind of by default says this is split. So the next step in the workflow is going to be iterating over each row just automatically. So that's really powerful and that's a useful feature to have. But as part of this, we can split properties or specific fields. So like we said, we just are interested in the tell us about your experience. So let's drag that into here and let's execute this step. And then here you can see that we've just kind of extracted tell us about your experience. And that is now, if we go back, that is now thoroughly and properly. So any workflow or any sort of next node that we create here will be automatically iterating over each one of those. There we have it. We've created a very simple, very powerful connection to Google Sheets, which now enables us to import in any amount of data, CSV files, put them into Google as a spreadsheet, and then import them into n8n. And I've shown you how to split things out so then whatever goes into n8n will now be going through each one of those, iterating over those rows specifically in any sort of workflow that you create. Next video, I'm going to take you through vector storage databases. Specifically, we're going to create a vector storage database, dump all of that user feedback into the vector storage database, and then that will enable us to search the user feedback and return relevant feedback based on semantic similarities. So that's going to be super powerful. Join me in the next video.